Bom dia. Kia ora, as we say in New Zealand. Hello, good morning. I hope you've all had a pleasant evening and you've woken up feeling refreshed and ready for another great day here at the World Council for Gifted and Talented Children Biennial Conference. I'm Tracy Riley, and it's my honour to introduce our keynote speakers today, Dr. Michelle-Ronksley-Pavia and Dr. Ahmed Abdulla Alabbasi, who are the 2025 recipients of the World Council for Gifted and Talented Children Emerging Scholar Award. As I mentioned yesterday in our general meeting, the Emerging Scholar Award recognises excellence in our early career scholars across their research, their teaching, their service and leadership to the field. Michelle is going to be joining us via video, and we could bring her on if she's available, because I'd like to introduce her first, and then I'll introduce Ahmed and invite him to the stage. Dr. Ronksley-Pavia is a senior lecturer in special education and inclusive education at Griffith University in Australia, whose research in gifted education is transforming our understandings of twice exceptionality and creating innovative educational opportunities for diverse gifted learners. Michelle's seminal model of twice exceptionality and research on stigma narratives have influenced the field as evidenced in her publications, presentations, and grant funding that she's been successful in receiving. Michelle is an Australian delegate of the World Council and a member of the editorial boards of Gifted and Talented International and the Journal of Gifted Education and Creativity. Is Michelle available to come onto the screen? Is she there? I can't. Oh, you're up above my head. Okay. Hi, Michelle. Sorry. You're up behind me and you're over there. So that's Michelle. Dr. Alabbasi is the Vice Dean of the College of Education, Administration and Technical Sciences and Chairperson of the Department of Special Education at the Arabian Gulf University. He is also the director and co-founder of the Medical Students Gifted and Talented program at his university and has research interest in multiple aspects of the intersectionality of creativity and giftedness, as well as emotional intelligence. Dr. Alabbasi has been recognised as an outstanding researcher and is an active member of the World Council. You will note his active support for early career researchers and doctoral students throughout the conference. Many of his students are here today and they are presenting their research with Dr. Alabbasi. Both of our keynote speakers today demonstrate the importance of the interrelationships between teaching, research and service for emerging scholars, and it is my delight to be able to spend time with them here today to facilitate a discussion about their scholarly work, the challenges the field faces and the potential solutions moving forward. Before we start the keynote, I would like to invite Dr. Alabbasi to the stage to receive his award, and we have sent Michelle's award to her. Has it arrived in Australia, Michelle? There we go. Come on. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to come over here for a photograph? Make sure we got Michelle in there.
Okay. Do you want me to put that back? Yes, please.
Take a seat where you'd like to sit. Okay, let's go to the slideshow. Do I do that from here, guys? Here we go. So I've introduced you to the two scholars, and we wanted to start the conversation today by asking both Michelle and Ahmed to spend a few minutes talking to us about the questions that they've explored in their research and what they've learned about giftedness as a researcher. So we're going to start with you, Ahmed. You want to grab a mic?
Hello? Okay. Good morning, everyone. And first of all, I'd like to thank the executive committee of the World Council, Gifted and Talented Children, and Tracy, of course, Taylor. We have been in communication since 2 months to prepare for this session. So thank you all. Um, um, I think this was the most challenging question I received. That's because, as you mentioned, I have multiple research interests, and it was hard for me to select what is the best research to share out of the 60 publications I do have so far. So I decided to focus on three main research that have practical applications for teachers and educators. The first research questions or the first research is about what is known in creativity literature as creativity gap. And I will define creativity gap very in a simple way. So creativity gap is the difference between creative performance when a student is in school versus when he is at home. So some student exhibited or three studies sampling non-gifted students. They found that non-gifted students, they prefer to exhibit their creativity outside of school, unfortunately. So we, in 2024, in a paper published in the Journal of Creative Behavior, we replicate these findings with a gifted sample. And what we found is similar, is that even gifted students with all what we offer them in school, they still prefer to show their creativity at home versus at school. And there are so many reasons for that, but I don't have much time to to discuss all the possible reasons. But you can find the paper in the Journal of Creative Behavior in September issue 2024. The second and third research that I wanted to share with you are related to the context and the environment related to gifted student. And maybe I have a question for you. Have you ever thought about, we all, I mean, teachers, they administer multiple assessments such as IQ, creativity test, and other assessment. So have you ever thought about what is the best time of the day that we should administer a divergent thinking test or creative thinking test? So this was not an easy question to answer, but we sampled gifted and non-gifted students, and we give them the test in the first half of the school day and the second half of the school day. And I was very confident that they will perform better in the first half of the school day, but the finding was different. They performed better in the second half of the school day, okay? So we need to, there are several interpretations for this finding, but the main thing that I want to focus or just highlight is that there is a science behind everything. When to give an IQ test, when to give a divergent thinking test. Is it the first, second, third class or session? Is it before break or after break? I think we need to be very careful with this question, because at the end, you want students to show their maximum performance So this is the second research, and related to this is that we give a creativity test assessment in the regular classroom versus the art room, okay? And we found a significant difference between the two settings, and students were more creative when they administered the creative thinking test in the art room versus the regular classroom. So this is the second research related to environment and context. And finally, as you know, the TTCT, the well-known test of creative thinking, is a time test. But the TTCT is not the only test of creative thinking, although I think it's the best one. I graduated from the University of Georgia and studied in the Torrance Center for Creativity and Talent Development. But what we found is that allowing more time for administering divergent thinking test resulted in higher creativity, and for gifted and non-gifted students, both samples. And finally, related to this research, is that we tested the explicit instructions to be fluent and original. So you don't just give the students the paper. You tell him what he or she need to do. I want you to be creative. I want you to think outside of the box. I want you to produce as many ideas as possible, versus the standard instruction that do not ask students to be fluent or original. And of course, we found that explicit instruction to be creative and fluent resulted in higher creativity. All in all, I mean, there are so many factors related to environment, and we need to consider all these factors because it affects the performance of gifted students. So these are for the first question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ahmed. And I can imagine that for you, Michelle, you will relate to a lot of this around environmental context, when we assess, how we assess. So let's hear about your research, Michelle.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tracy, for the wonderful introduction. And I'd also like to thank the WCGTC Executive Committee, my mentors and supporters, for this wonderful honour of receiving an Emerging Scholar Award for 2025. I'd also like to take the opportunity to congratulate my fellow award recipient, Dr. Alabbasi. While it's unfortunate I can't be with you there in person in beautiful Braga, technology like this makes our wonderful world all that much smaller, connecting us across continents from me here in Queensland, Australia, to enable me to be able to join you all today. So my research journey really began quite unexpectedly when a friend suggested that my then 4-year-old child might be gifted. That personal catalyst launched me into what has become over 2 decades of really transformative work in gifted education and twice exceptionality. So my foundational work emerged from what I've found to be a critical gap where the field really lacked consensus on defining the intersection of disability and giftedness. So my 2015 model of twice exceptionality, yes, it's been 10 years since that early conceptualization, addressed this apparent paradox by providing a theoretical framework to explain how disability and giftedness could coexist. What I believe sets my research apart is its commitment to privileging the voices of those that we work with. So my phenomenological work exploring the lived experiences of twice exceptional children has revealed profound stigma narratives, as you mentioned in your introduction. Children experiencing discrimination related to both disability and giftedness. And this research has really influenced how we approach understanding gifted learners' experiences, really starting to move beyond deficit models to embrace the complexity of their lived experiences. I've also conducted research to estimate twice exceptional prevalence rates in Australia. Critical work because governments really rely on statistics for policy development and funding allocation. And that research has revealed that twice exceptional learners are significantly under-recognised and under-supported, perhaps not surprisingly, in our education systems. And of course, that has really profound implications for educational equity. My work examining the misuse of the Australian NAPLAN data test for gifted identification also demonstrates that standardised achievement tests alone cannot and should not be used as a sole practice for identifying giftedness, which is a critical distinction between potential and performance that continues to be misunderstood in some practice and policy areas. Recently, I've begun examining pressing systemic issues in gifted education, research that I'll discuss later in our session, which reveals how these individual stories connect to broader patterns of educational inequity. Perhaps my most exciting work at the moment is with generative artificial intelligence and gifted education, and I know you've already had some presentations in this area. I'm exploring how Gen AI can shift pedagogical approaches from literal to metaphorical, from creative to analytical thinking, through experimental projects that I've developed, one called Project Zephyr, which was an imaginative exploration of human-powered flight that really evolved into a sophisticated examination of human potential, bias recognition, and cross-disciplinary learning. I've discovered how AI can create rich, complex learning experiences that can often match gifted students' need for depth and intellectual challenge. Another small-scale experiment that I've undertaken with AI was to generate 101 non-traditional uses for a hammer, demonstrating how these platforms can model the kind of divergent, unconventional thinking that gifted learners often possess. So it isn't about using AI as a prop. Instead, it's about using AI as a creative partner that can generate what I call adjacent possibles, or novel combinations that gifted students can develop further through their own ingenuity and critical thinking. I think this work has really taken off in the international field, along with other researchers working in the same domain of Gen AI, because it's really at the cutting edge of what we're doing. And this has led me also to be the first Australian researcher to receive the Esther Katz-Rosenfund grant from the American Psychological Foundation, alongside quite a significant Education Horizon grant from the Queensland Department of Education. So I'm really now leading two major projects exploring how Gen AI can be used to personalise learning for neurodivergent and twice exceptional students. It really is starting to work through what's relatively uncharted territory in our field. So throughout this journey, my work has consistently aimed to reframe gifted education by questioning assumptions, reimagining what it means to support potential in all of its complexity. The thread connecting all this research is a commitment to supporting the complexity of gifted learners and to ensuring that gifted education becomes really inclusive and equitable.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you, Ahmed, for sharing your research. You can see why these two scholars have been awarded the award that we're celebrating today. Part of the award is also around practice, and for both Michelle and Ahmed, they work within a university setting, or two university settings, and so I asked them to think about what they've learned about teaching and about servicing gifted education. So I'm going to pass to Ahmed first, who's going to share with us some developments at his university.
Thank you. So this is an initiative that I founded at the Arabian Gulf University, and the main reason for developing this program was that my belief is that gifted education should not stop at grade 12. So there should be a continuation after grade 12. So we started the first program for gifted students in very specialized field, which is medicine, and we call it Medical Students Gifted and Talented Program. What we do, or what we did in the past 7 years, we started in 2018, is that we decided to focus on three components. First, is to support student cognitive and affective development, because both are important. After that, we challenge their abilities, and then recognizing and rewarding their contributions and achievements. So I'll talk in some detail about each of these three components. So the support that they get is that they select workshops in the area they want to study. So some students, they want to study genetics, some of them they want to study stem cells, some of them they want to do cross-sectional studies about behavioral research. So we give them the freedom to choose the research idea they want to work on, and we select the best workshops for them to provide them with the content they need to learn about. Moreover, because we also focus on the soft skills, we send them to executive education programs and prestigious universities. We send them to the University of Oxford, to Stanford University, and to Harvard University. And we focus on leadership, but we also send them to other executive education programs other than leadership. And we assign a supervisor for each student, so he or she can learn from the supervisor. And this is research-based program. So at the end of the program, they need, which I will go to the challenge, they need to publish 2 to 3 papers as first authors. And I'm talking about undergraduate medical students, which is not easy. I mean, for some PhD students, it's not easy to publish 2 or 3 papers, but there was a doubt, and some of my colleagues, they challenged me, and they said that we don't think, I mean, colleagues from medical school, they said we don't think that students, undergrad students, they can publish even 1 paper as first author. But we took the challenge, and I will show you some of the products of our students. And the second thing is to complete the USMLE. It's a test to get admission to universities in the USA. So this is their challenge, and based on this challenge, we decide whether to reward them or not. Okay, so the reward, we cover the expenses of participating in international conferences. If they want to take any elective courses in any university, we cover the publication fees for their work. And we have a personal website for each student. Their CV is there, the funds there, the research topic they are working on is also there, and a certificate of completion. So on the graduation ceremony, they receive 2 certificates. One is the MD degree, and the second one is the completion of the gifted program. So these are the 3 main elements of our program. We started with 3 students, and now we have 21 students involved or enrolled in the program. I don't know why the first 3 students were male, and after that, all what we have are female students, because and based on one meta-analysis that I published regarding the difference between male and female in creative potential, we found that female slightly overperformed male in creative potential. So females
do not overperform.
Okay. So here are some of the collaboration we have with some institutes, and we have an agreement with Pearson to administer Raven, the advanced Raven. We don't have any paper and pencil test. Everything, once they finish the test, we get the report at the same time. And the Academy of Creativity for administering the creativity thinking test. So I'll talk about, finally, I'll talk about the admission criteria, how we admit our student. First, the gatekeeper is the GPA. They need to have a GPA of 85 and above, because they are MD students, and the MD, they came to the university to get the MD degree, not to get the gifted ed certificate. So after that, we have the 4 assessments. One is creative thinking test, one is IQ, one is critical thinking. We use Watson-Glaser critical thinking appraisal. And the 4th test is openness to experience as related to creativity. And we revise our admission criteria regularly, and we publish a paper on that, and you can find it. It's published in the Journal of Creativity. So this is all about the program. I have the brochure as soft copy. I can share it with you, and you can also have access to all the material at the Arabian Gulf University website. Just write AGU MGTP, and you will get the page in which you can find all the information about the program. So this initiative I started, and this is my final year, because I feel that I exhausted all my creative ideas for this program. I'll be there, but I think we need a fresh mind to run the program. So thank you.
Thank you. That's very inspiring as a dean of a graduate research school with a long career in universities. I totally agree that we don't always differentiate past year 12 in the way that we might want to. So thank you so much for sharing that. If we go to the next slide, I'm going to let you control the slides, Ahmed. Michelle, I'd like to turn to you, and sorry, you're just going to have to say next, and Ahmed will flip us from one slide to the next. Over to you.
Will do, thank you. So one of the most significant challenges that I've encountered in my research and university teaching is addressing the fundamental question, how do we get gifted education on the agenda and keep it there? And I wish I had a simple answer, or even an answer to that question. So from my pre-service teacher students, I've learned that many enter degree programs with a limited understanding of giftedness beyond stereotypical portrayals. They're quite often surprised to discover the complexity of twice exceptionality, or even realise that there is such a concept, and the reality of things like gifted underachievement and the sophisticated pedagogical approaches required to support these learners. What my students have taught me about gifted education really goes beyond what they see in the lectures, in the textbooks and so on. They've shown me that when educators really understand giftedness, they become passionate advocates as well. I've watched students transform from viewing gifted learners as they'll get by on their own to recognising them as some of our most vulnerable and complex students who really require sophisticated support. One particular powerful moment for me was when there was a pre-service teacher of mine shared how their understanding of twice exceptionality helped them recognise a struggling reader in their classroom who was intellectually gifted and also had dyslexia. So this revelation changed that child's educational trajectory and the teacher's entire approach to recognising and supporting diverse learners. So what strikes me most is when students have those kind of light bulb moments, suddenly recognising gifted characteristics in learners that have previously been overlooked or misunderstood. And those moments are what reinforce why initial teacher education needs to include gifted education content. Next slide, please. So the WCGTC Global Principles for Professional Learning represent a significant step forward. Implementation in Australia remains challenging. We're working to contextualise these principles for our unique educational landscape. And I really learned that effective professional development in gifted education needs to be grounded in lived experiences, both of gifted learners and their families, ongoing rather than one-off sessions, and connected to classroom practice with really concrete strategies, and also systemically addressing myths and misconceptions. From my service work, I've discovered that the most transformative professional learning happens when we create communities of practice. I've witnessed how sustained collaboration between educators creates expertise over time. Teachers supporting teachers, sharing successes and challenges creates a ripple effect that extends far beyond individual classrooms. My own advocacy work has taught me that change can often start with just one passionate educator. I've seen individual teachers become champions for gifted education in their schools, gradually shifting entire school cultures. They start by exploring existing practices, advocating for inclusive identification processes, and demonstrating how targeted instruction benefits all learners as well as our gifted students and twice exceptional students. My work leading the annual Griffith University Gifted Education Symposium has demonstrated how sustained collaborative professional learning can build genuine expertise over time. And we have a really exciting series of webinars planned for the second half of this year as part of the 2025 Symposium series. Next slide, please. Perhaps the most profound insight from my service work is that meaningful change in gifted education is fundamentally relational, not transactional. So when I work with teachers and schools, I found that suitable improvements occur when we acknowledge and respect the complexity of each context and each individual student within those contexts. We hold space for educators to voice their concerns and challenges and build genuine partnerships rather than imposing solutions, and recognizing that change can be slow, but it does happen. My mentoring philosophy centers on standing on the shoulders of giants. The profound influence of Professor Miracle Gross taught me that supporting emerging researchers isn't just about academic guidance. It's also about cultivating capacity for sustained impact. As Miracle showed me, I prioritize making time for conversations, championing the work of others, supporting early career researchers, and creating opportunities for the next generation of gifted education leaders. Next slide, please. So these reflections on my research, teaching and service journey bring me to three fundamental principles that guide all my work. The first is that inclusive gifted education is understanding, acknowledging, teaching, learning, advocacy, and leadership. I know that's a lot, but it's not just enough to simply identify gifted learners. We need to create comprehensive systems that support their development, ensuring equity and access for all students, particularly those who've been historically underrepresented. Second, research and practice needs to serve learners, not their labels. All too often, our field becomes focused on categories and definitions instead of the actual lived experiences of the children and their families that we're meaning to support. Every research question that I aim to pursue, every teaching strategy I develop, every service initiative I undertake needs to ultimately benefit the learners themselves. And third, change happens through people and programming approaches. Sustainable transformation in gifted education doesn't come from policy mandates alone, it comes from passionate educators, committed families, dedicated researchers, and the programs we design together. It's about building relationships, sharing knowledge, and creating systems that can adapt and evolve to meet emerging needs. These principles interconnect throughout everything that we've been discussing today, from my twice exceptionality research to my experimental work with Gen AI, from my teaching philosophy to my approach to service. They remind us that our field is ultimately about human potential and our collective responsibility to nurture talent development.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Michelle.
Tracy.
Thank you so much. And Michelle, I know you can't see the audience, but I can, and there was quite a bit of nodding, and there's a lot of positive affirmation happening here in the room. So thank you very much for sharing those key messages. Do you want to go to the next slide, Ahmed? So, as I've said several times, one of the reasons that I feel it's so important that we work with our emerging scholars and our emerging leaders and early career professionals within the field is because of the important role that people like Ahmed and Michelle will have in imagining the future of gifted education. So that final question they're each going to speak to for about 10 minutes each is on what they feel some of the critical issues are that we're currently facing in education, and importantly, the solutions. So I'm going to go to you first, Ahmed, and you've got the control, so off you go.
So here are some critical issues and possible solutions, and I listed only 5. There are more than 5, of course. So the first one is the miscommunication between researchers and educators. So we produce a lot of research. We have so many journals in gifted education now. But my concern is that we are not communicating with teachers about our findings. And sometimes we use a different language that the teacher they use. Without communication between researchers and teachers, there will be any let's say, practical application for what we are doing in our research. So here are 2 possible solutions. Ensure research findings are accessible and understandable for educators and teachers. So when someone asks you, what is your main research findings? So please do not tell him that multiple regression analysis indicated that X and Y predicted that, or the canonical correlation showed that divergent thinking and convergent thinking are highly related or associated. I mean, just give them the message they need and to implement. And if they ask for stat, then fine. But I mean, just try to avoid stat because they will say thank you. So give it to them in very, very plain language that they can understand. The second thing is that involve teachers, stakeholders, and communities in designing research itself. Some of us did not teach gifted students. So we got our bachelor's degree, master's degree, and PhD degree without teaching gifted students. So we do not know what's happening in school, and the best people who can tell us what's happening and what are the main issues inside schools and more. I mean, I would like to focus on gifted education services and programs. So teachers would like to ask what are the most recent, let's say, services or models in gifted education. So just communicate with them or engage in dialogue with them to understand what they need to enhance. And they can come up with some research questions that we never thought about. So I think we need to fix this miscommunication and communicate better with teachers and policymakers to know what they need to know about gifted programs and services. Okay, the second issue is that unfortunately the majority of studies in gifted education sample intellectually or academically gifted students, and there is little room for gifted students in math and science and chess and any other domain-specific talent. So one of my agenda for research, and if you want to do that research, it's fine, is to do a systematic review on studies that sampled intellectually gifted students or academically gifted students versus gifted students in specific domains. And I know part of the answer is that the majority of studies, unfortunately, identify or conceptualize giftedness as in terms of achievement and IQ and other tests. So possible solutions that you include these areas in your definitions of giftedness, but even if you do that, you need to find the instrument, the identification system to identify those students in these specific areas. And I think it's much easier to identify gifted students who are good in math, who are good in chess, because the assessment is more objective. It's by product. So if you want to know who's talented in painting, you just ask them to paint something and send that painting to an expert, and he or she will judge whether this is an original and advanced piece of art. So this is the second issue. The third one is lack of communication between researchers because of language, let's say publishing in languages other than English. Some of my colleagues, they blame me that I only published 2 papers in Arabic, and that was because if I publish in Arabic, I will not be visible for other researchers around the world. So, in some cases, I conducted, one of my research interests is conducting meta-analysis, and one of the challenges that we find some articles in other languages other than English, and we cannot use these articles. So the solution is very easy. Use AI to translate articles in other languages, and I think this is not a misuse of AI. A few months ago, I received an invitation from a well-known journal in gifted education, and at the beginning of the manuscript, the author were asked if they use AI, generative AI, and they said, yes, we use AI. And then the second question, use it for what? And they said to translate from X language to English. I don't want to say the language because I don't want to, because the paper was just recently published in that journal. So I think with AI we can access articles in other languages, and we can learn from each other's, because there are let's say cultural differences in gifted education, and the same for all other sciences. And number 4 is, where are problem finders? There is a lack of research on problem finding in gifted education, and if you just go to any gifted education journal and just write problem finding, I assure you that you'll not get more than 10 results. And this is disappointing, because problem finding, or what I believe is that what we should do is that we create problem finders, not only problem solvers. So those who can sense the problems, anticipate the future, what are the problems that will emerge in the next 20, 30, 40 years from now. So the possible solutions that it's important to not consider problem finding as one part of the creative problem solving process. It is one part of the process, but it is an independent ability that include at least 5 skills, ranging from problem definition to problem discovery. So more research is needed in this area. I published 2 or 3 papers, but I think it's not about Ahmed. it's about researchers in the field. If they feel that we should only produce problem solvers, then that's fine. But I think my belief is that we should also pay attention for problem finding. And finally, there is, I'm not sure if there is any empirical research so far on the effect and use of generative AI in gifted education. I saw some articles, but these were not empirical studies. And we need to know more about the use and the effect of using generative AI and in what way we can use it. And perhaps the more accurate and comprehensive answer can be found in this reference in Siegel 2023. He wrote about the role of ChatGPT and AI in gifted education, but still this was a theoretical paper, and we need to know more about or investigate more about the use and the possibility of AI for advancing our gifted program and services. So these are the five main critical issues that I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ahmed, and thank you for focusing on research. I'm going to go to you now, Michelle. We'll go to the next slide. Thank you. Over to you, Michelle.
Thank you. So I'd like to share some findings from what I consider some of the most important recent work that I've done that connects to critical issues. It was actually a project called Pressing Issues in Australian Gifted Education. So it was a comprehensive national study examining the most pressing systemic challenges facing gifted education here. But I think it's got global implications that extend far beyond our borders and likely connect with worldwide issues in gifted education policy and practice. So as I go through these next few slides, I'm sure some of you will be ticking off in your own contexts and countries as well, some connections to what I'm talking about for pressing issues here. So using a mixed methods approach, we surveyed 118 stakeholders across the entire gifted education ecosystem: educators, parents, gifted education leaders, researchers, psychologists, and policymakers. Our research questions were deliberately broad yet focused. So the first one was, what are the biggest barriers to effective gifted education today? How do these challenges manifest in everyday school practices and policies? And critically, what changes are needed at the classroom, school, and system levels? What emerged was 6 key pressing issues, and there's quite a lot of complexity to these, so we're probably going to end up publishing a number of papers from this study, but I'm going to talk through the 6 most pressing issues that I believe represent not just Australian challenges, but global patterns affecting gifted education across the world. So these findings provide an evidence base that can support policy reform, teacher professional learning, and advocacy for more inclusive, responsive, and equity-informed practices. So I believe the power of this research lies in its national scope and diverse stakeholder perspectives, giving us a comprehensive view of where our field stands and where we need to direct collective efforts, particularly in Australia. Next slide, please. So our research revealed that Australia's lack of national gifted education policy creates a no mandate, no momentum situation, where gifted education remains an optional extra in many schools, with outcomes frequently left to chance, fundamentally compromising equity. This systemic invisibility means that whether a gifted child receives appropriate support depends largely on where they live and the individual school that they attend. Obviously, this is undesirable in a nation that emphasises its commitment to educational equity and excellence. Of course, there are some fantastic pockets of excellence, some schools and classrooms doing great stuff. This is a broad view of the pressing issues in Australia. So the policy vacuum has real consequences. I've worked with families who've moved states or even to different countries seeking appropriate educational provision for their gifted children. We have children with a great deal of potential being ignored because there's no systematic approach to nurturing talent. Meanwhile, other educational jurisdictions, other countries are making strategic investments in gifted education as part of innovation agendas. Next slide, please. So we have some intent, little infrastructure when it comes to teacher preparation. Our research has shown that limited specialist professional learning opportunities in gifted education is often absent from initial teacher education. And this is the same story that research in Australia has told time and time again. Teachers report feeling underprepared and undersupported to work with and advocate for gifted learners. It creates a concerning cycle. Teachers who don't understand giftedness may inadvertently overlook or misidentify gifted learners, particularly those from diverse backgrounds, twice exceptional, multi-exceptional learners. So the irony is profound. We expect teachers to differentiate for gifted learners without having the professional learning to be able to effectively do that. I regularly receive emails from frustrated teachers saying, I know this child is gifted, but I don't know what to do. And of course, that's not the fault of the teachers. It comes down to systemic failures in initial teacher education and ongoing professional learning. Our research also revealed that many teachers resort to giving gifted students more work, the dreaded worksheet cycle. As we know, this can impact gifted learners by creating negative associations with learning and can lead to underachievement and disengagement. Next slide, please. The persistent stereotype that gifted equals easy and gifted equals high achiever continues to harm gifted learners. It overlooks underachievement, twice exceptionality, multi-exceptionality, disengagement and perfectionism, creating frustration for students, parents and teachers. My research on twice exceptionality revealed that the additional burden faced by the learners who are both gifted and have disability, these children fall through the cracks quite often because their needs appear contradictory to some people who don't understand the complexity of their profiles. One of the most damaging myths is that gifted students will make it on their own. Research time and again shows this simply isn't true. Without appropriate challenge and support, many gifted learners develop learned helplessness, perfectionism, depression, disengagement, and may leave school prematurely. I've interviewed young people who told me they learned to dumb down to fit in, essentially hiding their gifts to avoid social rejection, as Professor Mirica Gross demonstrated through her work and the phenomenon of the forced choice dilemma. Twice exceptional students face additional barriers. Imagine being told you're both too smart and too slow or too dumb, depending on the task. These students need us to see their whole profile, not just their challenges or their strengths in isolation. Next slide, please. Perhaps most concerning is what we've termed gifted by income and postcode. Our research showed that according to stakeholders, identification and subsequent support vary dramatically by region, with gifted learners from low SES, culturally and linguistically diverse or remote backgrounds quite often missed. This disproportionality represents systemic discrimination. When there's a failure to identify and support giftedness across all populations, we're not just failing individual learners, we're failing our society's potential for innovation and progress. This inequity perpetuates cycles of disadvantage. Gifted students from privileged backgrounds can often access private tutoring, selective schools, enrichment programs, and social and emotional support, while potentially equally capable students from less advantaged backgrounds can remain unidentified and unsupported. We're essentially creating a two-tiered system where your family's resources determine whether your giftedness is recognised and developed. Again, unfortunately, not a new story. International research is clear. Countries that cast the widest net for gifted identification and talent development are usually the most innovative and economically competitive. We can't afford to overlook giftedness based on postcode, background, or socioeconomic status. Next slide, please. The sixth critical issue we identified reveals a harsh reality. Gifted education has become marginalised within competing educational priorities. The participants in our study consistently reported the challenge we summarised as too much to teach, too many students, too little time. Specifically, what came down to being identified as too little time for gifted education. Teachers in particular told us that other areas are prioritised over gifted education and talent development. They felt overwhelmed by existing workloads and systemic demands, leaving gifted learners' requirements viewed as non-urgent. This creates a misleading perception that gifted students can wait or will be fine on their own. And this marginalisation isn't just about resource allocation. It reflects deeper assumptions about who deserves immediate attention in our schools. When gifted education is consistently deprioritised, it sends a clear message about whose potential matters most. This systemic neglect ultimately undermines commitments to developing all learners' capabilities and supporting every child to reach their potential. Next slide, thank you. Addressing these issues in Australia and no doubt globally requires coordinated action across multiple levels. We need national gifted education policy with accompanying funding commitments flowing down to state and territory policy and practice implementation. Equally important is developing inclusive, equity-focused approaches that recognise gifted students' complexity and needs. This means inclusion of gifted education in initial teacher education, ongoing professional learning grounded in lived experiences, and positioning students, educators, and parents as change makers. My current work with generative AI represents one pathway forward, using technology to personalise learning experiences and model complex thinking for gifted learners, while building teacher capacity to effectively leverage these platforms. The future of gifted education lies in our collective commitment to serving learners, not labels, and ensuring that change happens through people and programming approaches that prioritise equity and inclusion. The frontier of gifted education isn't just about advancing our knowledge. It's about ensuring that every single gifted learner, irrespective of their background or their learning requirements, has the opportunity to develop their potential. This requires all of us to be advocates, educators, and agents of change. I know I'm preaching to an audience that gets this. So thank you for listening, and thank you for the honour and the award, and for your collective commitment to making gifted education more inclusive and more equitable.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle. Listen, we don't have time for many questions. We've got about 3 minutes and the coffees might be getting cold. But do we have any questions from the audience that you'd like for Ahmed or Michelle? Tyler? Did you have a question? Oh, Tyler has a question. I thought Tyler had all the answers.
I guess it's a question about what's out there. So, Ahmed, you were talking about, I think it was issue number 4. Where are our problem finders? I think that was what you were talking about as issue number 4. I believe that June Maker and Kadir Bahar has worked on problem finders. Are you familiar with their work? Is there other work that's out there? What's out there in the literature about that, and where is the biggest gap that you see?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm aware of these works, and but there is discontinuation. The last works on problem finding, sampling gifted students was in 80s and 90s, and then there is discontinuation. Now I think there are very few research on problem finding, and not just how to assess problem finding, how to enhance students' problem finding. And I think Torrance' definition of creativity include sensitivity to problems, but for a reason or another, maybe some educators or researchers in gifted education, maybe it's not an appealing research track, but I think it should be on our agenda. Yeah, thank you.
Did you have a similar question for Michelle around where are the gaps? Or maybe I'll just ask Michelle, are there gaps that you really see clearly within the areas that you're working in, particularly, I guess, the neurodiversity?
Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, great question. Hundreds, thousands of gaps. one of the great things about generative artificial intelligence is you can load your research into it and say, what are some gaps in what I've been looking at? Tell me what these are so I can go off and research them. So for me, at the moment, it is looking at what teachers can do to support gifted students in the classroom and really building their capacity right from initial teacher education through professional learning, ongoing professional learning. For me, that's the crux of what we're doing in initial teacher education as well.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle, for joining us online. I know that it's late in the evening down in our part of the world. We really appreciate you being with us and sharing your insights, and thank you, Ahmed, for being here. I think we've all learned something. I have a small gift for Ahmed, and we will make sure that we get a gift to you if we haven't already. Hold on just a sec. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. It was lovely to work with you. Okay, I think it's now time for a cup of coffee or a good lie down. Thank you, Michelle. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.